The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport of the merchant vessel Compass Rose. Captain Sarah Chen watched them with the same wonder she'd felt as a child. Back when humanity first learned they weren't alone in the universe, that was 50 years ago. 50 years since the Galactic Council had arrived on Earth and extended their invitation to join the community of spacefaring species. Sarah had been born in that new era. She'd grown up learning alien languages alongside English, studying xenobiology next to human history. She'd dreamed of the stars, and now at 32 she commanded her own ship. The Compass Rose wasn't much, a small cargo hauler carrying textiles and electronic components, but it was hers. "Captain, we're approaching the outer rim boundary," her navigator James Park called from his station. The young man had only been with her crew for 6 months, but he was sharp and careful. "Good, maintain course. We have clearance to pass through." Sarah checked her console. The paperwork was all in order. They had every right to be here. The outer rim was a buffer zone between several territorial claims. Technically neutral space, though the Vrex Dominion had been making noises about controlling it for the past decade. The Vrex were an old species. They'd been traveling the stars for over 3,000 years. They looked down on humanity the way an ancient empire might regard a barbarian tribe. Sarah had met Vrex before. They were tall, with crystalline skin that reflected light in strange patterns. They spoke slowly, as if every word required great patience to waste on lesser beings. She didn't like them much, but the galaxy was full of species she didn't like. Her job was to move cargo, not make friends. The alarm came without warning. Red lights flooded the bridge as proximity sensors screamed. Sarah's hands flew across her controls, pulling up the tactical display. 5 ships had appeared from nowhere, surrounding the Compass Rose in a perfect formation. They were Vrex warships, each one 10 times the size of her small vessel. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Compass Rose," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are a civilian merchant ship with full authorization to transit this space. Please state your intentions." The response came in the clicking, chiming language of the Vrex. Her computer translated it instantly. "Human vessel, you have violated Vrex territorial space. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. "This is neutral space recognized by the Galactic Council. We have committed no violation. The Council's authority is outdated. This region now belongs to the Vrex Dominion. You will comply." She looked at her crew. James was pale but steady. Her engineer, Maria Santos, had come up from below, her expression grim. Her security officer, a man named Chen Wei, who was no relation despite the shared surname, stood with his hand near his sidearm, a useless gesture against warships. Sarah made the only choice she could. "Stand down, everyone." "We'll comply and sort this out through diplomatic channels." The boarding was swift and professional. Vrex soldiers in powered armor marched through her ship, their weapons trained on her crew. They were taken to the Compass Rose's small cargo bay and forced to kneel. The Vrex commander, his armor more ornate than the others, stood before them. "I am Commander Zeltix of the Vrex Dominion," he announced. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "You humans presume too much. You have been in the stars for mere decades, yet you act as if you have rights equal to those who have ruled for millennia." "We have the same rights as any member of the Galactic Council," Sarah said, keeping her voice level. "If you have a dispute with our passage, it should be handled through proper channels." Zeltix made a sound that might have been laughter. "The Council is weak. They allowed your species to join far too early. You should have waited another 1,000 years before being granted such privileges." He walked closer to Sarah, looking down at her from his great height. "But perhaps this is an opportunity. The galaxy must learn that the old powers still command respect, and you humans must learn your place." Sarah felt cold dread wash over her. "Whatever you're planning, it will have consequences." Earth will do nothing," Zeltix interrupted. "You are small. You are weak. You are children playing at being adults." He turned to his soldiers. "Bring the captain." They hauled Sarah to her feet. James started to rise, but a soldier struck him down. Maria was crying. Whether from fear or rage, Sarah couldn't tell. "Please," Sarah said, and hated herself for begging. "My crew has done nothing wrong." "Your crew will be released to carry a message," Zeltix said. "But you, Captain Chen, will serve as an example." They dragged her to her own bridge. The Vrex had set up broadcasting equipment, linking to multiple galactic communication networks. Sarah understood then what was about to happen. This wasn't about territorial disputes or navigation rights. This was about power and fear. The execution was broadcast across 40 systems. Sarah Chen died on her knees on the bridge of her own ship, while the galaxy watched. Zeltix made a speech about respecting established powers and knowing one's place. He spoke about the natural order of things and how young species needed to learn humility. Her crew was released as promised. The Compass Rose was towed to a Vrex station and impounded. James, Maria, and Chen Wei made their way back to human space in a passenger liner, traumatized and grieving. When they reached Earth, they found humanity already knew what had happened. The broadcast had reached human colonies within hours. The images of Sarah Chen's death had spread across every human world. The Human Diplomatic Corps immediately filed formal protests with the Galactic Council. Ambassador Liu Chen, no relation to Sarah but he took her surname as a sign of solidarity, stood before the council and demanded justice. The council listened with the patience of ancient beings. They expressed regret. They called the execution unfortunate and excessive. They suggested that both sides should pursue dialogue and understanding, but they did nothing. The council had 500 member species. Humanity was one. The Vrex Dominion was one of the oldest and most powerful. The mathematics of politics made the choice simple. One human life balanced against galactic stability was not enough to risk conflict. Ambassador Liu returned to Earth and resigned his position that same day. The Galactic Council declared the matter closed and moved on to other business. Trade disputes, territorial negotiations, the usual flow of interstellar politics. A few species sent private condolences to human worlds, but most simply forgot. One death among trillions of lives, it was, in the grand scope of things, meaningless. The Vrex celebrated their successful demonstration of power. Commander Zeltix was promoted and given command of an entire battle fleet. The message had been sent and received. Humanity would know its place now. But something strange began to happen in the days following Sarah Chen's death. Human ambassadors started leaving their posts. Every single human representative in the Galactic Council sphere quietly packed their belongings and departed. No explanations were given. No statements were made. Human merchant ships began turning back toward their own space. Trade routes that had been established for decades simply stopped operating. Human colonies stopped responding to non-essential communications. The galaxy noticed but assumed it was grief or perhaps a tantrum from a young species that had been put in its place. They expected humanity would return after a few weeks once the sting of loss had faded. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about many things when it came to humanity. The silence from human space lasted exactly 1 week before anyone took it seriously. At first, the other species barely noticed. Humans were such a small part of galactic commerce and politics. A few trade routes disrupted, some embassy positions left empty. These things happened. Species went through isolationist phases sometimes. They would come around. It was a Mrenthi trade minister who first raised the alarm. The Mrenthi were a commerce-focused species, obsessed with tracking every credit that flowed through the galaxy. Minister Kelvanth noticed that human economic activity had dropped to exactly 0 outside their own territory. Not reduced. 0. This is not normal behavior, Kelvanth told the Galactic Council Economic Committee. Human trade represented 0.3% of galactic GDP. It has vanished completely in 7 days. Every human merchant, every human transport, every human passenger ship, they have all returned to their borders. The committee acknowledged his concern and moved on to other matters. 0.3% was not enough to worry about, but Kelvanth kept digging. What he found disturbed him enough to call an emergency session. When he presented his findings, the chamber went quiet. The humans are building something, Kelvanth said, his forearms gesturing at the holographic displays. Every industrial center in human space has increased output by 400%. Shipyards, manufacturing plants, resource extraction, all operating at maximum capacity. Building what? Someone asked, unknown. They have shut down all observation access. Even civilian communication channels are restricted. Kelvanth's large eyes blinked slowly. But the energy signatures suggest military production. A Vrex representative stood, his crystalline body catching the chamber's light. The humans are upset. They are perhaps building defenses because they feel vulnerable. This is natural for a weak species that has been properly educated about their position. Perhaps, Kelvanth said, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. But there is something else. I have been studying human history since they joined the council. It is troubling. The chamber rustled with curiosity. Human history was short, a few thousand years of primitive civilization before they reached the stars. What could be troubling about that? In their entire recorded history, Kelvanth continued, humans have never gone more than a few decades without engaging in warfare. They have fought each other over resources, territory, religion, ideology, and honor. They have fought with stones, with steel, with chemicals, with nuclear fire. Their whole civilization is built on the foundation of conflict. Many young species are violent, an old Zathrian counselor said, his tentacles waving dismissively. They grow out of it as they mature. We have all been through such phases. No, Kelvanth said firmly. You do not understand. We were violent in our past, yes, but we evolved beyond it because violence became inefficient. Humans are different. They never stopped being efficient at warfare. They simply got better at it. He pulled up more data. Images of human history filled the chamber. Ancient battles with primitive weapons. Medieval sieges. Industrial warfare with machines designed solely to kill. Nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire planets. And then, most recently, their rapid advancement in space-based weapons technology. Look at their development curve, Kelvanth said. Most species spend thousands of years learning to be peaceful before joining the galactic community. Humans spent thousands of years learning to be better at war, then joined us without ever forgetting how. The chamber was less dismissive now, but still skeptical. Humans were small. They had few ships, few soldiers, limited resources compared to the major powers. Even if they are militarizing, the Vrex representative said, they cannot threaten the established powers. The Vrex Dominion alone has a fleet 100 times larger than humanity's entire naval capacity. In traditional ships, yes, Kelvanth agreed. But I have been monitoring their construction patterns. They are not building traditional warships. They are building something else. Something smaller, faster. I believe the lights in the chamber suddenly flickered. Emergency alerts sounded. A communication officer rushed in, his expression panicked. The human homeworld has transmitted a message, he announced. It is being broadcast on all frequencies across the galaxy. Put it through, the council speaker commanded. The holographic display shifted to show a human woman in a simple black suit. She stood before a blue and green planet, Earth, their homeworld. Her expression was cold. I am Secretary General Amira Okoro of the United Earth Government, she said. 2 weeks ago, Captain Sarah Chen of the merchant vessel Compass Rose was murdered by Vrex forces while conducting lawful transit through neutral space. We appealed to the Galactic Council for justice. We were told the matter was closed. She paused, and in that pause the entire galaxy felt something shift. We formally served notice of our withdrawal from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We recognize no authority in a body that places political convenience above justice. Furthermore, we are issuing a formal declaration of war against the Vrex Dominion. Shock rippled through the council chamber. A declaration of war? Against one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy? It was insanity. The Vrex killed one of ours and expected no consequences, Okoro continued. They were mistaken. We do not believe in proportional response. We believe in appropriate response. And the appropriate response to murder is not diplomacy. The transmission showed images of Sarah Chen, her service record, her family, her life. A real person, not just a statistic. Captain Chen served humanity for 12 years. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She died because someone decided her life had no value. We are here to correct that misunderstanding. Okoro's eyes seemed to look directly at everyone watching. To every species in the galaxy, we offer this one chance. Stay neutral or stand with the Vrex and face the same consequences they will face. To the Galactic Council, you have shown us that your justice is worthless. We will provide our own. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. The Vrex delegates were already on their communication devices calling for military mobilization. The speaker tried to restore order but failed. Kelvanth sat quietly, running calculations. If his analysis of human industrial output was correct, and if his understanding of their historical military tactics was accurate, then the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed humans would react like other species, with protests, with negotiations, with reluctant acceptance of their inferior position. But humans had never been like other species. They had survived and thrived on a death world by being more stubborn, more aggressive, and more creative in warfare than anything else on their planet. And now the galaxy had given them a reason to direct all that evolutionary pressure outward. On Earth, in hundreds of orbital shipyards, the construction continued. Humans worked around the clock, building fleets of ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Small, fast attack craft, stealth vessels, missile platforms. They weren't building for a traditional war. They were building for the kind of warfare humanity had perfected over thousands of years. Total war. In the Vrex capital, Commander Zelthix received his new orders. He was to take his fleet to human space and end this uprising before it began. The Vrex had fought wars before. They always won. Their technology was superior, their experience vast. These humans would learn the price of pride. Zelthix looked at the tactical displays showing human territory. Such a small region of space. This would be over in weeks, perhaps days. He had no idea he was already doomed. None of them did. 3 months after Sarah Chen's death, the first human strike came. It happened simultaneously across 12 different star systems, all of them Vrex colonies on the outer edges of their territory. The attacks began at exactly the same moment, coordinated with precision that shocked military analysts across the galaxy. Commander Zelthix was on the bridge of his flagship when the reports started coming in. At first, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Colony Theta 7 is under attack, his communication officer reported, his crystalline face flickering with confusion. Multiple human vessels, unknown class. They are targeting the orbital shipyards. Send the 4th Fleet, Zelthix ordered. How many ships? Unknown. They are using some kind of stealth technology. Sensors cannot get accurate counts. Before Zelthix could respond, more reports flooded in. Colony Theta 9. Colony Delta 4. Colony Sigma 8. On and on, 12 different colonies all screaming for help at once. This is impossible, Zelthix said. The humans do not have enough ships for simultaneous attacks on this scale. But the evidence kept coming. Video feeds showed human attack craft swarming like insects around Vrex installations. They were small, impossibly fast, and they hit hard. Shipyards exploded in brilliant flashes. Orbital defense platforms went dark. Communication arrays tumbled through space in pieces. And then, as quickly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished. Zelthix mobilized his entire battle fleet. They jumped to Theta 7, the closest attacked colony. When they arrived, they found wreckage but no human ships. The orbital infrastructure was completely destroyed. The shipyards were gone. The defense grid was offline, but the colony itself was untouched. What is this? Zelthix demanded. Why did they not attack the colony? His tactical officer examined the damage reports. Commander, they were very precise. They destroyed only military and industrial targets. No civilian casualties reported. Scan for human vessels. They must still be in the system. They scanned. They found nothing. Zelthix ordered his fleet to jump to the next attacked colony. The same story. Destroyed infrastructure. No civilian damage, no human ships to be found. They jumped to a 3rd colony, then a 4th. Every time they arrived too late. The humans were ghosts. On the 5th colony they visited, they found something new. A message buoy. Broadcasting on all frequencies in multiple languages. Zelthix ordered it played. A human face appeared on the screen. A young man in a military uniform. He looked tired but determined. I am Admiral James Park, commanding officer of the United Earth First Strike Fleet, the recording said. To the people of the Vrex colonies, we have no quarrel with you. We have destroyed military and industrial assets only. Your lives are not our target. But understand this. Every ship built in these yards, every weapon produced in these facilities, they were all tools to maintain your dominion over others. The Admiral paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was harder. 3 months ago, Commander Zelthix murdered Captain Sarah Chen. Your government did this to teach us our place. So we are teaching you something in return. You are not untouchable. Your power is not absolute, and if you take one more step in our direction, we will stop showing mercy. The message ended. Zelthix felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Not fear exactly, but the ancestor of fear. Uncertainty. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to surrender or fight a conventional war that the Vrex would win through superior numbers and technology. But this was not a conventional war. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Vrex demanded intervention. Surely the Council could not allow such unprovoked aggression. Surely they would condemn humanity's actions and demand they cease hostilities. The human ambassador, a new one, since the old ambassadors had all resigned, stood before the Council and listened to the Vrex accusations. When it was her turn to speak, she was brief. "You want to talk about unprovoked aggression?" Ambassador Chen Wei said. "You were there when Sarah Chen was murdered. You did nothing. The Vrex asked for your help. Now you care about justice?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We recognize no authority in this council. You are welcome to send observers, but understand that we are not interested in your opinions or your mediation. You cannot simply ignore the council," a Zathrian representative protested. "There are rules, protocols. You ignored your own rules when it was convenient," Chen Wei interrupted. "You taught us that the rules only apply to the weak. Well, we have learned that lesson. We do not intend to remain weak. The Council demanded humanity cease hostilities. They passed resolutions. They issued condemnations. Humanity ignored all of it. The Vrex, humiliated and enraged, mobilized their full military might. Their armada was massive. Thousands of ships, the accumulated power of 3 millennia of technological advancement. They would crush the humans and end this embarrassment. Admiral Zeltix was given supreme command. His orders were clear: find the human home fleet and destroy it. But the human home fleet could not be found. Zeltix sent scout ships throughout human territory. They found nothing. Human space was empty, or appeared to be. Where were their ships? Where were their bases? The humans had to be somewhere. Meanwhile, more Vrex colonies were hit. Not the same colonies, new ones. The humans struck at random, or so it seemed. There was no pattern Zeltix could discern. They would hit 3 colonies in the northern sectors, then jump to the southern sectors and hit 2 more. Sometimes they waited days between attacks. Sometimes they struck multiple colonies in a single day. Each time the damage was the same. Military installations destroyed, industrial capacity eliminated, but no civilian casualties. And each time the human attack craft vanished before Vrex reinforcements could arrive. The Vrex economy began to strain. They could not maintain their industrial output when their shipyards kept getting destroyed. They could not defend everything at once. The humans had somehow turned the Vrex's vast territory into a weakness rather than a strength. Other species began to take notice. The Vrex had seemed invincible. Now they were scrambling to defend their own colonies from a species a fraction of their size. Kelvanth, the Mrenthi trade minister, watched the reports and ran his calculations. He had tried to warn them. Humans did not think like other species. They did not fight fair. They had studied warfare the way other species studied art or philosophy. They had perfected it, and now the galaxy was learning what that meant. In his command center, Zeltix stared at tactical displays that showed nothing useful. The humans were out there somewhere, planning their next strike. He had thousands of ships and no idea where to send them. For the first time in his long life, Zeltix understood what it meant to be outmatched. Not in technology or numbers, but in something more fundamental. The humans understood war in a way the Vrex had forgotten over their millennia of dominance. The humans fought like they had something to prove, because they did. 6 months into the war, the Vrex Dominion was losing. They would not admit it publicly. Their representatives still spoke with confidence in the Galactic Council chambers. Their propaganda broadcasts still declared inevitable victory. But the numbers told a different story. 43 colonies had been hit. Industrial output was down 60%. Ship production had nearly stopped. Trade routes were disrupted as merchant vessels refused to enter Vrex space. The economy was collapsing, and the Vrex still had not managed to engage the human fleet in a single direct battle. Commander Zeltix had stopped sleeping. He spent every hour in his command center, studying reports, analyzing patterns, trying to understand how the humans were doing this. His fleet of thousands of ships had become useless. Every time they responded to an attack, they found only wreckage. The humans were fighting a style of warfare the Vrex had never encountered. They called it guerrilla warfare, asymmetric warfare, 4th-generation warfare. The Vrex called it cowardice, but cowardly or not, it was working. Then things got worse. Reports came in that other species colonies were being visited by human ships. Not attacked, visited. A single human vessel would appear in orbit, broadcast a simple message, and leave. The message was always the same. This star system provided material support to the Vrex war effort against humanity. We are aware of your involvement. This is your only warning. Cease all support, or you will be treated as active participants in this conflict. The humans had lists. They knew exactly who had sold weapons to the Virex, who had provided supplies, who had offered logistical support. And they visited each one. Most species immediately cut their ties with the Vrex. A few refused, calling the human threats empty. Those few learned quickly that the threats were not empty. The Karathi system had sold advanced targeting computers to the Virex. They ignored the human warning. 3 days later, their orbital manufacturing stations were destroyed. Like the Vrex attacks, the strikes were precise. No civilians died, but the economic damage was severe. The message spread quickly. Do not help the Vrex. The Galactic Council tried to intervene again. They called both sides to negotiations. The Vrex, desperate now, agreed immediately. They were willing to discuss terms. The humans sent a single representative, a young woman named Lieutenant Sarah Park. No relation to Admiral Park, but she had taken the name in honor of Sarah. Chen, we will hear your terms, the council speaker said hopefully. Lieutenant, Park stood before the assembled representatives of 500 species and spoke clearly. We have no terms to discuss. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to finish what the Vrex started. You cannot simply continue this war indefinitely. A Zathrian counselor protested. There must be a peaceful resolution. Where was this peaceful resolution when Captain Chen was murdered? Park asked. Where was your concern for peaceful resolution then? That was one death, the counselor said, and immediately regretted his words. Park's expression went cold. One death. You are right. One death is all it took. The Vrex killed one human to teach us our place. So we are teaching them what one human life is worth. She pulled up holographic displays showing Vrex industrial capacity before and after the war. The decline was stark. This is what one human life costs. 60% of Vrex industrial output. 43 colonies disrupted. Their economy in collapse. And we are not done. This is madness, the Vrex representative said. You are destroying yourselves along with us. Your economy must be suffering as well. Park smiled. You still do not understand. Human economy is built for war. We have been doing this for thousands of years. We can sustain a war effort that would break most species. The question is not whether we can afford to continue. The question is whether you can afford for us to continue. The council session ended without resolution. The war went on, but the humans changed their tactics again. Instead of just hitting military and industrial targets, they began targeting the Vrex economy more directly. Trade ships were boarded and their cargoes seized. Financial networks were hacked and disrupted. Supply chains were systematically dismantled. The humans did not steal or keep what they seized. They gave it away to Vrex colonies that were suffering from the economic collapse. Food shipments intended for the Vrex homeworld were redirected to outer colonies where civilians were going hungry. It was psychological warfare at its finest. The humans were not monsters. They were not trying to cause suffering. They were trying to break the will of the Vrex government while showing the civilian population that Earth was not their enemy. It worked. Protests began on Vrex colony worlds. Civilians demanded their government end the war. They were tired of shortages, tired of fear, tired of watching their economy crumble over one human death. The Vrex government had thought they were teaching humanity a lesson. Instead, they had started a war they could not win. Zeltics received new orders. End this war, whatever it takes. Sue for peace. Offer reparations. Just make it stop. He broadcast a message on all human frequencies. This is Commander Zelthix of the Vrex Dominion. I am authorized to offer formal surrender and discuss peace terms. The response came from Admiral Park himself. The young man who had once been Sarah Chen's navigator looked much older now. War had aged him. Commander Zeltix, I remember you. You murdered my captain. You broadcast it across the galaxy. You thought it would make you look strong. Did it? Zeltix said nothing. What could he say? You offer surrender now after 6 months of war. After 43 colonies damaged. After your economy is broken. You sue for peace because you have to, not because you want to. Park's expression was hard. But this was never about forcing you to surrender. This was about making sure no one ever does what you did again. What do you want? Zeltix asked and heard the defeat in his own voice. Justice, Park said simply. Not revenge, justice. You will stand trial for the murder of Captain Sarah Chen. The Galactic Council failed to provide justice, so we will. And if I refuse? Then we continue. We have mapped every single Vrex military installation, every shipyard, every industrial center. We can keep doing this for years. The question is whether the Vrex Dominion will still exist at the end of those years. Zeltix looked at his officers, at the tactical displays showing the wreckage of Vrex power. They had been one of the galaxy's great empires. Now they were begging for peace from a species they had dismissed as children. I will stand trial, he said quietly. Good, Park said. But that is not all. We have demands, not just for the Vrex, but for the entire galaxy. What demands? You will see. The Galactic Council is about to learn what happens when they value political convenience over justice. The transmission ended, leaving Zeltix alone with his defeat. He had killed one human and doomed his entire civilization. The irony was not lost on him. Across the galaxy, species watched and learned. Humanity had proven something terrifying. They were small, they were young, but they were capable of bringing down empires. And they had done it all because one life mattered to them. One human life had changed everything. 1 year after Captain Sarah Chen's death, the Galactic Council chambers were filled to capacity. Every species, major and minor, had sent representatives. They came because humanity had demanded it, and after what humanity had done to the Vrex Dominion, no one dared refuse. Secretary General Amira Okoro stood before them, flanked by Admiral Park and Ambassador Chen Wei. Behind them in restraint stood Commander Zeltix. He had surrendered himself as promised, and now he would face justice. Members of the Galactic Council, Okoro began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 1 year ago, a human captain was murdered in cold blood while conducting lawful business. We came to you for justice. You gave us nothing. The chamber was silent. No one interrupted, so we provided our own justice. Commander Zeltix will stand trial under human law for murder. He will be judged by the standards of the civilization he chose to violate. But his personal guilt is only part of why we are here today. Okoro activated a holographic display showing the current state of the Vrex Dominion. Their territory was intact, their colonies functioning, but their military capacity was reduced to nearly nothing. Their economy was a shadow of what it had been. The great empire had been brought low. We could have destroyed the Vrex completely, Okoro said. We had the capacity. We had the justification. But we chose not to, because this was never about destruction. It was about sending a message. She turned to face the council directly. The message is this: sentient life has value. Every life, regardless of species, age, or political power, has value. When you allowed Captain Chen to be murdered without consequence, you told the galaxy that some lives matter less than others. We are here to correct that mistake. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Where was this going? We are presenting the council with a choice, Okoro continued. You can accept the Chen Accords, a new framework that guarantees equal rights and protections for all sentient species. Or you can refuse, and humanity will recognize no authority in this council. The document appeared on displays throughout the chamber. Representatives began reading quickly. The Chen Accords were comprehensive. They established universal rights for all sentient beings. They created enforcement mechanisms with actual teeth. They ended the informal hierarchy that had placed ancient species above younger ones. This is too much, a Vrex representative protested. You cannot restructure the entire galactic order because of one incident. Admiral Park stepped forward. One incident. You murdered a human captain to prove a point. You broadcasted it to teach us our place. And when we responded, 37 other species provided you with material support. 37 species decided that a human life was worth nothing. He pulled up new data. Do you know what we found when we investigated your supply chains? 12 species were selling you weapons specifically marketed for use against humans. Weapons designed to counter our biology, our tactics, our technology. You were not just supporting the Vrex. You were preparing for the day when you might want to kill us too. The accusation hung in the air. Several species representatives looked uncomfortable. The Chen Accords ensure this never happens again, Okoro said, not just to humans but to any species. If you sign, you agree to treat all sentient life with equal value. If you refuse, you declare yourself outside the protection of law and humanity will treat you accordingly. This is blackmail, someone shouted. No, Chen Wei said calmly. This is justice. Blackmail would be if we threatened you without cause. We are simply asking you to agree that murder is wrong. If that is controversial, Perhaps the problem is with your values, not our demands. The debate raged for hours. Some species argued that humanity was overreaching, using its military success to impose its will. Others argued that the accords were reasonable, even necessary. The Vreks, humiliated and broken, argued that they should not be bound by rules created by their conquerors. Okoro let them debate. Then she spoke again. Let me be clear about what happens if you refuse. Humanity does not need the Galactic Council. We have proven we can defend ourselves. We can build our own alliances, create our own trade networks, establish our own order. But if we do that, we leave you with a galaxy where might makes right, where the strong prey on the weak, where murder has no consequences. She paused, letting that sink in. Is that what you want? Because we will give you exactly that. We will withdraw completely and let you live with the system you have created. And the next time someone murders an innocent being for political convenience, there will be no one to stop them, no one to care. The chamber went quiet, because everyone understood what she was saying. Humanity had shown they were willing to fight for justice. If they left, if they withdrew, the galaxy would return to the old ways, and there were many species who would suffer under the old ways. The vote came the next day. 412 species signed the Chen Accords. 83 refused, mostly ancient empires that resented having to share power. 5 species abstained. To those who signed, we welcome you as true partners, Okoro said. To those who refused, we have no quarrel with you unless you violate the rights of others. But know this, we will be watching. Humanity rejoined the Galactic Council, but on new terms. They were no longer supplicants begging for acceptance. They were equals, and they had the strength to prove it. Commander Zeltix was tried and convicted of murder. Under human law, he faced life imprisonment. But Admiral Park, in a gesture that shocked many, requested leniency. Zeltix was sentenced to 30 years instead of life, with the possibility of parole. The Admiral's reasoning was simple. We fought for justice, not revenge. Let him live with what he has done. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy, just as Sarah Chen's murder had been. Everyone watched as the great Vrex commander was led away in chains. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. On Earth, in the capital city, a monument was erected. It showed Captain Sarah Chen in her uniform, looking up at the stars. The inscription read, "She died so that no one, human or alien, would ever be killed for convenience again." The monument became a pilgrimage site. Not just for humans, but for species from across the galaxy. They came to honor a woman they had never met, who had died for a cause she never knew she was part of. 20 years later, a young Vrek student named Kelthix traveled to Earth as part of a cultural exchange program. She stood before the monument, reading the inscription over and over. An old man was there too, visiting the memorial like he did every year. "Were you there?" the student asked. "During the war?" "I was," the old man said. He had white hair now and tired eyes. Admiral James Park had retired from military service a decade ago. "I knew Captain Chen. She trained me when I first joined her crew." "I am sorry," the student said. "My grandfather was Commander Zelthix. My family carries great shame." Park looked at the young Vrek, seeing fear and guilt in her crystalline features. "Do not apologize for your grandfather's sins. You are not him, but my people started the war. We killed Captain Chen. We destroyed so much." "Yes," Park agreed. "And you lost so much in return. But that is over now. The question is not what happened then, but what we do now." The student looked up at the monument. "Humans are strange. You destroyed my people's empire over one death. Most species would have taken reparations and moved on. Why did this matter so much to you?" Park smiled, though there was sadness in it. "Because if one life does not matter, then no lives matter. We learned that lesson the hard way in our own history. We had wars where millions died, and people shrugged because the numbers were too big to comprehend. But one person, one name, one story that matters. Captain Chen mattered, and we made sure the galaxy understood that." "Did we doom the galaxy?" the student asked quietly. "When we killed her?" "No," Park said. "You saved it. You just did not mean to. Before Captain Chen died, the galaxy was a place where power decided worth. Ancient species mattered. Young species did not. The strong preyed on the weak and everyone accepted it." He gestured to the monument. "She died and we refused to accept it. We fought not just for revenge but for a principle. And now the galaxy is different. Not perfect but better. Your generation will inherit a galaxy where every life has value, where justice means something. That is Sarah's real legacy. The student touched the monument gently. We learn about her in school now. About the war. About the Accords. My teachers say humanity taught us that morality is not optional. Morality is never optional, Park said. It is just easy to forget when it is inconvenient. The galaxy forgot. We reminded them. As the sun set over the memorial, Park and the student stood together in silence. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different generations, united by the memory of a woman who died so that the galaxy might be better. Captain Sarah Chen never knew she would start a war. She never knew her death would reshape galactic civilization. She was just a merchant captain trying to do her job. But sometimes one life is enough to change everything. Humanity had proven that. And the galaxy would never forget.